Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. And yes, I think we can not clarify, but come back to some questions which already popped up in the last discussion. More than half of 12 to 90-year-olds in Germany, we have seen relating data for Switzerland and Greece just before, regularly use Instagram. 64% own a TikTok account and 26% are on Facebook. And children and teenagers encounter the past and miss a colorful mix of holiday impressions, memes, dance videos. And according to recent studies conducted by the Facebook Intelligence Group, individual posts are only perceived for 1.7 seconds. What this actually entails can be seen here. When scrolling quickly, there is hardly any time for an intensive examination of historical cultural postings. Yet this is precisely what would be necessary, because not only academics and actors of institutionalized historical culture provide contributions, but also journalists, interested users, and many others exchange their views of past events on the social web, publish, post, comment, and establish new formats and models of remembrance. The reduction of history to a few characters and short video clips, to name just two examples, leads to new forms of narration. And as the short imitated scrolling through Instagram has shown, social media allows the effortless dissemination of conspiracy myths, for example, anti-Semitic narratives. This raises the question, how do adolescents perceive history in the digital space? Do interpretations and judgments about historical facts, the essence of dealing with the past, remain invisible to their eyes? In order to answer this question, I would first like to take a look at what's hidden behind the terms of digital and social media. In history didactics, there is no distinct scientific understanding of media so far, which is why I merely want to refer to the distinctive features of them. The characteristic of digital media can be defined as descripting, because the internet is a place of the visual, delinearization, because linear narratives are disrupted, the dissolution of boundaries, because history and historical culture are available regardless of time and place, as well as de-hierarchization, because everyone can be a producer of historical cultural products. The various websites, portals, and applications are not to be regarded as neutral transmission channels. Rather, they are a space of emotionalization and manipulation, as Husemann holds space. This simultaneously describes the digital space as a social space. Another key feature of digital space is that of hypermediality. Digital narratives are non-linear. This alone is not a novelty, since it applies to conventionalized scientific texts that are conceptually based on linearity, but whose mediality cannot prevent a non-linear reception, as Tahaba summarized. Beyond that, however, digital narratives are multi-sequential and often without a fixed end. This is the only constituted when it's read. The recipient is included in the production process. This means the more linked they are, the more different unforeseen readings can arise. The users therefore called upon to produce coherence on their own. This requires specific historical skills, for example, orientation, perception, and attention control. So far, however, there are few findings about behavior and interaction on the social web. Lena Lieban from the University of Duisburg-Essen is currently investigating the question of how students deal with digital tasks, and in doing so, she's following up on research by Bettina Degner, who looks at learning and cooperation strategies for solving digital historical learning tasks. Astrid Schwabe has also examined different types of learners in the digital space. She was able to show that there's a distinction between scrolling, searching, and researching user types. The latter received special attention in Jan Hodel's dissertation, in which he investigated ways of obtaining and processing information when preparing presentations. But the gap that Hannes Burkhardt mentions in his dissertation, published in 2021, students' perception on the social web, like we just heard before, is as much as a desideratum as the investigation of changed impact of images. And although, as Peter Haber states, the visual dominates the experience of reality in the digital space, we do not know what learners perceive in an image, but we believe we know exactly what they should perceive in an image, as Markus Bernhard criticized back in 2007. He concludes that pictures are only perceived in partial context, but without a fundamental system. Since Bernhard's interview study, little progress has been made. Questions about digital image perception thus remain largely unanswered. So how is it possible to gain insight into adolescents' perceptions when engaging with historical cultural posts on the social web? In answer to this question, I would like to outline the potential of an eye-tracking study. In this project, perceiving refers to the level of perception in which sensory perceptions are brought together with higher level brain processes. The physical stimuli are thus first received by specific receptors, recognized and converted into new neuronal signals. Perception leads to the formation of an inner experience, stable representation of what is perceived. The subsequent classification refers to the further processing and classification of what is perceived into coherent context. Following the perspective of history didactics, perception addresses the competency to perceive changes in time, to encounter evidence from the universe of historical and presentation from historical culture. This is expressed, for example, in the ability to ask questions and make assumptions about sources and presentations, and to select from these according to their applicability for answering the historical question. From the perspective of media didactics, perception includes the ability to structure, interpret, and differentiate on social media. The competency is complemented by skills of utilization, which include reception control, selection, and communication skills. Whereas, for example, in thinking aloud or questionnaires, the actions performed have to be transferred by language, by the participators themselves, or in observation by the evaluation of work products, and interpretation is carried out by the receiving side. By contrast, the eye tracking is a possibility to make the perception of adolescents directly accessible. Through eye tracking glasses, cameras, and specific software, the subject gaze and the object they are looking at are captured at the same time. Fixations, gaze changes, so-called saccades, and dwell times in a defined area of interest can be measured. Due to the refinement of technique, eye tracking has become a valid instrument for investigating the visual processing of perceptions in recent years. The collected data first indicates which elements are looked at and perceived, and in the second step permits more in-depth quantitative analysis. By these means, insights into the perception of learners can be gained. Research already available proves the potential of the methodology. Especially through studies on the perception of videos and images, insights into the viewing behavior of users could be gained. For example, it could be shown that the perception of images in digital space is also dependent on their contextualization. As Glaser, Knoß, and Schwan were able to show for the viewing of historical pictures in museums, objects that are closer together, for example, in picture elements, are more easily brought into a context than objects that are far away. This raises questions about the construction of digital learning environments and the contextualization of images. In addition, the eye movement of experts, for example, viewers with subject specific prior knowledge, and layperson differ significantly in image perception, as studies by Nadine, Lofa, and Kupinski have demonstrated. This finding, in turn, prompts considerations on the individualization of user experiences and on internal differentiation. The planned project is designed as a cross-sectional study covering grade 8, 10, and the first year of the qualification phase. Due to technical framework conditions imposed by the method, the project is planned as a laboratory study. For each grade, 7 students should participate, resulting in a sample size of 21 persons. Perception will be assessed in mixed method approach. Visual perception by means of eye tracking, cognitive processing of the content via tasks that are processed with the head of thinking aloud. An Instagram feed comprising about 5 historical culture postings consisting of image and text will be constructed as a test environment. The environment should be designed in such a way that it imitates the natural user behavior of the participants. In summary, the aim of the study outlined here is to gain insight in adolescents' perception of history on social media. For the moment, many crucial points are still under discussion. Is Instagram actually the most suitable platform, or should other platforms such as TikTok be considered? How can the perception of users be simulated as naturally as possible? Is it worthwhile to make use of the posts offered by institutions, for example, memorials, or knowledge influencers, for example, the well-known German Mr. Wissen to Go? Which genre of historical cultural posts should be focused? And on top of that, by focusing on Instagram, reels and stories also be shown, or should the area of interest be limited to pictures and captions? These and other questions I would like to answer in the next part of my project, and I'm looking forward to our joint discussion.